Hey everybody, welcome to another Bible study. This time we're going to look at Genesis 1:28 to 31. The title of the sermon will be Pro-Life, that's why this is on here. So to understand this text, we have to go back to the way other creation narratives work, to juxtapose what's being said here because it's quite powerful. The other creation narratives that we know about, and we know a lot, talk about humanity actually serving the gods and serving their images in the garden. And you have to understand how the relationship between the gods, the pagan gods, and humanity worked. In their view, humanity was created as kind of like slaves. They were a lower form. They were useful to the gods in so much as they provided for them. And by providing for them, then the gods would bless them. So it was a contractual relationship. It was not a loving relationship as you might express in other ways. And in this contract, how it worked was, I just lost it, there it is. How this worked is that the gods would provide protection, they would provide blessings on the crops, they would provide different things that made human life easier, so far as these people would worship them and provide for them. Now these gods, it's hard to understand because we have a God that's never hungry. These gods needed to be fed. That's where the sacrificial system came in. And they would be the human beings would then bring their sacrifices to the table and they would provide for the gods the food. And by doing so, this contract worked. In so much as that contract continued, then the gods would provide for the humanity with the things that made their life easier. If, on the other hand, the gods were slighted, that's when crisis would come. That's how the creation narratives worked, how they understood their relationship with gods, say like Baal or the Egyptian gods. This is how they viewed, and all of them viewed this relationship with the gods in this way. The gods were very fickle, and they created humanity only so much as they would serve them. That's the important point. And in so much as when they didn't serve them or there was a problem, they would deal with it. For example, in the flood narratives of the pagans, they were destroying humanity because there was overpopulation. They were becoming a problem. It's a very, very different narrative than, say, the Noah story. But we'll get into that later on. So within that world, this is how they saw humanity. This is how all of Israel's neighbors saw themselves. Of course, there was always one that had made it to godlike status. He, in every creation story, tries to be like God. He tricks the gods, or he finds a way in, and they allow him to be kind of like a minor god. And this person in their creation stories will then become the lineage of the king, who will thus bear God's image in there. He's the only one in the pagans. And he's the one that's semi-divine, and you can think of the Pharaoh seeing himself divine in other kings. It's very, very different than our creation narrative. So now we come to our creation narrative, and God has brought order. He has brought the good. He has set up the world in such a way now, and remember, it's not the how, it's the why. And the why is he set this up so that he has created this area where clearly humanity is going to be set up now to thrive. But what he describes in our creation narrative is stunning in light of the other creation narratives. How he looks at humanity is completely different. The revelation in this Genesis story is stunningly different. So let's jump right into it. And God blessed them. Now here we start off, he's created humanity in his image, which is incredible, and now he blesses them. How does he bless them? Well, he says to them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the heavens, and over every little thing that moves on the earth. So first of all, he blesses them by making them like him. He's an image bearer who created people to bear his image. Now he's invited them to procreate. They get to bear his image, and the blessing is that they now, through the process of having children, get to create. Now, they're not the creator, they're not God, but he's made them like him in that sense, and that's a blessing. So he starts off, they're not there to serve him. He blesses them to continue to bear his image. He has creation developed so that they can start to look like him. This is an incredibly different narrative. So humanity, and the blessing is that they get to procreate. Children become the ultimate blessing for Israel then. And the ultimate curse for those ancient Israelites was to be barren, because to be blessed was to be fruitful and multiply. Now, we might have trouble with that because we know people are barren for very different reasons. But in that ancient world, we have to understand it, that they understood it because of this creation era, because of the why. And you can't help us think of the Abram story, where he and Sarah can't have a child, but God blesses them by having a child out of season. This is all going to wrap up into to our New Testament stories about how God blesses humanity through Abraham's faith. Anyways, so God says to them, he's blessed them, and he says to them, be fruitful and multiply. And then he uses two words, subdue and have dominion. These two words are the language that you have of kingship, okay? So now he's taken male and female. Notice he doesn't say males be kings. It's the them that get to be kings, male and female in God's image. They are to be kings over the earth. This is the subdue and have dominion. Now, what that means, we have to be very careful, because it has been used that we just take the creation and we use it to our ends no matter what. But this is God's good creation. To be a king in the ancient world was to manage things for God or the gods in their way. And in this way, God is not asking us to dominate in the sense of destroy, but rather to take the earth and to make it organized. He's allowing us to do what he's been doing. He's been taking out of chaos and creating order and calling it good. Now humanity gets to continue in that because they bear his image. These are not people who take care of his wooden or stone images in the garden. These are the image bearers, and they act like him. They act in the way. And of course, this makes sense to the ancient mind, and including our modern mind. If you've ever seen people on Survivor trying to organize creation and they don't do it, you see how deadly creation can be. Humanity is designed to use creation, to develop creation, to subdue it, and use it for it. In other words, the world is not created just as a blank slate, and that humanity is just an afterthought, as our creation stories in our modern world thinks. That's why humanity is so disregarded, is because they see it as an accident or a danger. Some people have even called it a virus, humanity on the earth. Not in our creation story. Humanity is there to serve the God, to act like God on the earth, to be God's representative, to bear his image. And of course, he goes back and he emphasizes the fish of the sea and the birds of the heaven and every little thing, because they, who we just talked about before this, they've also been blessed, by the way, to procreate, but not in the same way. They're not called to have to subdue or have dominion. They're there to serve. They're there to be part of this creation, but humanity is the center of this creation. All right. And God said, behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit, you shall have them for food. Now, I'm going to let you know that this has created, and this might be something you guys want to talk about, because he emphasizes every time the plants and the seeds for food. Some people have said, look at, in the creation narrative, God intended for humanity to be vegetarians. There is an argument to be made. I know it's a hard one for us to grasp, but there's an argument to be made. First of all, not everything is clearly vegetarian, because there clearly are animals that eat other animals in this time. He talks about the wild animals. So, the question you have to ask yourself is then, why do we have emphasized God created like livestock? Well, they weren't just there as pets. So I don't personally believe this is about vegetarianism, but I will say that there's an emphasis at the beginning to connect fruit and plants and seeds with eating, okay? So we have to be fair to the text, all right? And to every beast of the earth and every bird in heavens and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has breath of life, I have given you. And then he goes, I have given you every green plant for food. Now the question is, does he emphasize this birds, everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has life as part of that food, or has he just separated that to every green plant for food? This is a debate. I actually don't think that the purpose of the creation story is to give us a menu of what's good to eat. I think the creation story is telling us, and the main point here is that humanity has been given these things. This is for them. It's a gift. It's a very generous God who's telling them, bear my image. You get to, this creation is created for you so that you can represent me in this world that I believe, right from in the creation story, is always intended for God to dwell with humanity, to be in this tight relationship with them. Of course, we're going to blow that up, but that's the purpose. He wants this garden, and I believe the garden represents the planet Earth, he wants this for our place for us to dwell. So he wants us, and he's blessed us to be like him, not him, but like him. Procreation, ruling, taking care of things. And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made. Now we're at the end of this creative act. We're going to get into the rest, which is not what you're going to think, but we'll get into that next week. And God saw that everything he had made. And when he had made, it's not the how, it's the why. Everything he'd organized, everything's put together. This process of creation right from the beginning, out of this chaos. Remember when we had the sea and the void and all of that? Well, now he's seen that everything is, and behold, it was, and then we have the good in the Hebrew, or the very good. Hebrew doesn't have the varies in it. That's how it works. So it's the good. This means it's really good. This is really organized. This is very much what his purpose was meant to be. This part of the creation story, the first chapter and a bit, right up until the end of the rest period, the day 7, is all about the goodness of this cosmologically. We're going to get into what it means to humanity by chapter 2, which is like the sequel of this. And there was evening and there was morning the 6th day. So we've got this again, another day. And again, this is a process of telling. It's not a literal. Again, we're not doing with the how, but he has now created humanity. And this is like a peak point for humanity. And I think that we can't help but ask ourselves, why is humanity treating each other so poorly today? Why do we disvalue life so much? Why do we not honor the weak and the broken? And I would argue because our world has focused on the how. And because the how appears to them like this was just chaos that came together somehow in an organized way, and you've heard these things, then humanity is kind of an afterthought. It just kind of accidentally showed up. Then there's no value. And this is what I'm saying, is that the biblical gospel, the reason why Western civilization has even valued humanity, because paganism did not, the Greeks did not, is because this story, it permeated Western civilization. It permeated some of the East. And what happened was it gave value to human beings. And this is why Jesus Christ gives so much value to everyone around him, because they are made in his image. He sees, as the creator God, that these are good, even though they're sinful, even though they're broken, and he's out to redeem it. But that is for another day. So let's get into the questions. The scriptures describe procreation as a blessing bestowed on humanity by God. Why is this, and how is this different? Why is this a blessing, and how is this different from some current worldviews of having children? So that's a tough one for you, and you want to ask yourselves even how we look at having children. Remember that they would feed these gods, just to bring you into more discussion, where it got really bad, and people often wonder, why did they sacrifice children, including Israel did at one point, Moloch, right? Well, what would happen is they had that contractual relationship with their pagan gods, and they would give more to the god, and hopefully they would get more back. Obviously, the number one thing you would give in the ancient world was a child, so if things were drastic enough, or you were in a famine, they would say, well, let's finally just give our children over to this god, and that will make them like us, as it were, and then fulfill their end of the contract. This shows the worldview of what children were in the ancient world, which were nothing, things that you could offer to a god. Now, let me ask you, today, do we not make similar contracts to the no God we don't believe in, that maybe we could sacrifice our children so that we can have better lives? That's something to think about. All right. It is undoubtedly true that how we answer the who we are as human question affects how we live our lives. That's undeniable. And it was in the ancient world, and it is today. Clearly, It affected the lives of the ancient pagans in tragic ways, as I just described. How might it be affecting our current cultural climate of how we treat each other? And number 3, the church is called to bear the image of God as described in the Genesis account. How might we practically do so, reflecting on the text we just examined? How might we, as the church, who are called to be the people of God, we are the redeemed people of God. We are supposed to live out the new Adam through Jesus Christ, who fulfills what Adam does not. How are we to treat people, the world, the environment, each other, in light of what he's made us to be in this creation narrative? Because ultimately, the resurrection, whatever it's going to be, it's going to reflect humanity being truly human. We're going to be able to be who we were created to be. We won't be floating off into some nether world or, Philadelphia cream cheese commercial where we're up in the clouds with men feeding us cream cheese, whatever. What I'm saying is there will be something very human about us. There's a reason Jesus' resurrection is physical. Think about that. There's a reason why redemption has to have a physical nature, because God created us human and Jesus has to be human. There's so much theological continuation to the gospel from what this original story is. So I hope that this helps you. I hope that I didn't speak too much on this stuff. There's so much going on here. I hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next week.